Oh, the difficult side. That arm doesn't bend very far. So the constraint is the tactic or strategy. Yeah. Sorry. That's all right. That's fine. Working out. Well, that's from proximal to distal. The beginning, the initiation of the movement is from the dorsal, but it extends to the distal of the leg and the arm. Yeah. And the constraint is the arm. And so it's configuration. You do it. Yeah.
Okay, so this one is constraint. This can get a little fruity, so be careful. Constraint with a movement in extension and flexion. So not constraint, scrub all that. Contrast, sorry.
Contrast.
No, because we just don't constraint. The previous one was constraint. This is contrast.
Okay, thank you.
This is the fruity bit.
Now, Martina requested this next one.
Oh. But I was very concerned about
So was that clear? So the depends. So notice how much that's got to do with the practitioners, what the practitioner is holding in mind as they do something. Yeah? And that's that whole business of context. It's really important. Yeah? Because you could be looking at that and saying to yourself, well, that's actually an exposition of where and which part is involved in flexion and extension, increasing the self-image because the hands shift. But your intent is, can this person get really clear? This is flexion, this is extension. So what you hold in your mind becomes like the tactic, even though from the outside it could look like something completely different. It's important to remember that. Yep, and that's Jenny and I were just having a conversation about that a while ago. And what we're realizing needs to happen is there's a kind of like, in linguistics, they have like a tree, an inverse tree. And so differentiation would be at the top. So how can you differentiate? Well, you can differentiate via contrast. You can differ, and how do you contrast proximal and distal? Because can you see that it's kind of like, so, and that's what needs elaboration. So great point, absolutely great. Yeah. Nice. So you can once again clear, and notice the close relationship between two tactics: the wobbling and the rhythmic oscillation, the rhythmic oscillation, and the combination of support. When you put those two together, you're able to do it, but it requires the two together become aligned. Before the primary tactic is oscillation, and then the comrade of oscillation is complementary, comes into alliance with support. And this is how it often works in F5. You hardly ever see one tactic done for a long period of time, although it could be. But that's usually, would you say, Jimmy, that's the exception rather than the rule? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, me too. Yeah. If the language is a tool to help you reflect on your practice, how you do things, then it's useful. But don't get entrapped by the language. Just as long as you know, this is what I'm doing now, this is what I'm doing, this is my intent now, this is the context now, this is what I'm setting up now. Okay. Okay, one more group and then, we'll call it a day. I think we might go a few minutes over. Go ahead, one more group. Don't all rush.
I think this is just straight.
We were talking about effort substitution.
Good. Excellent. Effort substitution is great.
Which covers you as well, clearly.
That's okay.
In that lab.
Repetition is fantastic. I have no problem with that.
So look, this is exactly what you took through the other day.
That's pretty good.
From the person's shoulder and very slowly and very gently taking it out.
Very slow. You've got sloths on.
Lovely smiley white one.
Complementary imagery. And also the punching. So more laughter. Is that so? That's still at the substitution.
Absolutely. What do you got here? You could disagree.
You're taking over the muscle, stopping it doing what it's doing.
And then now, not entirely sure what this one's called, but the doing both, right? Hold, bringing the shoulder up and encouraging it to slacken off the tension.
Yeah, that's still effort substitution, but it's positionally based. Yeah, you move one part of the skeleton near the next part of the skeleton, that's what a muscle does. when a muscle, you've got to remember, it's really important. When a muscle pulls, so when a muscle contracts, it pulls on everything that's connected. So even though the shoulder is doing most of the movement, your head is being pulled off to the side. It's just that you're stabilizing.
Can you do it inside with the person to incline their head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then pattern amplification.
Oh, nice.
Down. I will press up against me. And then
Yep.
What was the name of this step?
That's actually called pattern amplification.
Pattern.
Pattern, like when you're in your pattern.
And yeah. It accentuates it, and so it creates contrast. Yes.
You ever use the box then? For play? I found the case with arthritis in my hand. And I like to know that rather than doing this, when you give my fingernail in, I actually do like
Oh, right, yeah.
I can
That's technique.
Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, so tactic, strategy. Yeah. So can you see? You have a strategy. You have a tactic, and then the strategy and tactic needs a way of being performed, executed. You've just shown me a different way of performing the same strategy as, you know, bunching up the muscles, taking over the work. Yeah. Yeah. Effort substitution. Same thing. I'm using them interchangeably. Yeah. So this is what's really important as you go on in the next few years. You'll see many different techniques for executing a particular tactic. And that's what you already encountered when we were doing this afternoon. Yeah? You encountered Zoran's technique. Yeah? The strategy is the same. Distal, proximal, distal, proximal, distal, proximal, distal, proximal. But how you execute it, how you use your hands, that is something that will become very, very personal to you. And as long as you're clear on this is what I'm doing, and I can breathe, and I can move my pelvis, everything that you've encountered so far in the 2 years, the technique is fine. There is no one way of executing a particular tactic. So that's why that nice example, but bunch up the muscles, or lift up the shoulder, or move two parts of the skeleton in the way that they would move together if that muscle was contracting. They're all effort substitution. And whether you use your hand like this, or whether you get the person to do something like this, just sit on your side, lean on your hand. Okay, now just lean into the shoulder, would you? There you go, effort substitution. Yeah, this is right up here. That would be effort substitution with the person's positioning, their configuration. Yeah.
Because it's really doing that same.
Yeah, can you see it's taking over everything here? Yeah. And this is where, after a while, however you represent those tactics to yourself, with whatever language you choose to use, it'll become clearer. Because I'm just making up these words, by the way. Some are within our Feldenkrais vocabulary, differentiating, integrating, constraining. Others are not. Propagating kinetic linkages. I don't think, although Susan would really like that. Yeah, call them what you like, but when we use language, the most important thing is that you know what it means, and then can you communicate it to somebody else? Okay. So we'll have a look at some more groups tomorrow morning, and then we'll kick off from there. Thanks for staying back a little bit, and I'll see you tomorrow.